All right, let's jump right in, shall we? Today, we're diving into a topic that's causing a real stir, uh, AI, copyright, and how they intersect, especially in the creative world.
Yeah, it's a pretty hot button issue right now, with lots of strong opinions on both sides.
Definitely. And we're going to try to untangle it all, looking at it from different angles. We've got some juicy excerpts from a Guardian article, some big name authors like Kate Moss and Richard Osman. They really didn't hold back. Plus, we'll look at what industry leaders and even the government have to say about it all.
It's fascinating, because this isn't just a theoretical debate. This is about the real-world implications for creators and, well, for anyone who enjoys books, music, art, you name it.
Right. It's about how we value creativity in a world where AI is becoming more and more sophisticated. And, one of the key points of contention is how AI learns.
Yeah, these AI models, they need vast amounts of data to train on, and tech companies are really pushing for access to all sorts of copyrighted material, books, music, art, the whole shebang.
So they're basically saying, hey, we need all this creative stuff to teach our AI how to be creative, which on the surface sounds reasonable. But the artists, well, they're not exactly thrilled about that idea.
You can imagine why. It's like, hold on a minute, you're using our hard work, our creativity to train your AI, and we're not getting anything in return.
Yeah, it's like someone using your secret recipe to open a restaurant without giving you any credit or a cut of the profits. And we're not just talking about small-time artists either. We're talking big names, Paul McCartney, Kate Bush, Stephen Fry, all raising concerns about this.
Exactly. And the core of the issue is this. The tech industry is pushing for what they call an opt-out system, similar to what they have in the EU, which basically means they can use copyrighted material unless the creator specifically says no.
And they argue that this would make the UK more competitive in the global AI race, right? Leading to faster innovation, economic growth, potentially even more jobs.
Yeah, that's their argument. But creators, they're pushing back hard, demanding an opt-in system instead.
Meaning they would have to give permission before their work could be used to train AI, which makes sense, from their point of view.
Right, they're saying, this is our work, our intellectual property, and we should have control over how it's used.
Absolutely. And they argue that being forced to constantly police their work and tell companies, no, you can't use this, well, that's not fair.
Yeah, it puts a huge burden on the creators to protect their rights. And it's not just about the principle of it either. There are real concerns about how this could impact their livelihoods.
You spend years honing your craft, pouring your heart and soul into your work, and then suddenly it's being used to train a machine that could potentially create something that competes with your own creations. That's gotta sting.
It does. And one of the authors in the article, Kate Moss, she had this really striking analogy. She compared the opt-out system to a thief stealing Mars bars from a store and then saying, well, you didn't tell me I couldn't steal them.
It's a powerful image that highlights the sense of unfairness that a lot of creators are feeling. And you can see both sides, right?
Yeah, you have the tech industry. They see this incredible potential for AI to revolutionize creativity, leading to all sorts of amazing new possibilities.
And they see these copyright restrictions as, well, a roadblock to achieving that vision.
But then you have the creators who are understandably worried about their work being devalued, their livelihoods being threatened, their artistic vision being, I don't know, distorted or something. It's complicated.
And right smack in the middle of all this is the UK government. They're trying to walk this very fine line between supporting AI innovation and protecting the rights of creators.
And reading these sources, it's not entirely clear which way they're leaning. They keep saying they want a balanced approach. But there's definitely some skepticism from creators who feel like the government is siding with the tech industry.
And to be fair, the UK government has been pretty vocal about its ambition to become a global AI superpower, which adds another layer to this whole debate.
It does. And right now, they're holding consultations on potential changes to copyright law.
Yeah.
But it's not clear whether those are truly genuine or just a formality before they implement changes that favor the tech industry.
It's messy, no doubt about it. And it raises some big questions for you, the listener. Whose side are you on in all of this? Do you think AI should have free rein to use copyrighted material, or should creators have more control? What do you think is the best way to balance these competing interests?
Even more fundamentally, how do we even define creativity in the age of AI? If a machine can generate a song or write a story that's indistinguishable from something created by a human, what does that mean for the future of art? What does it mean for the value we place on human creativity?
Those are some big questions we need to grapple with. But before we get too philosophical, I think it's important to understand how this AI training actually works, the nitty-gritty of it all.
Right, because the technical side of things can really illuminate why this debate is so important. It's not just about legal arguments. It's about the very essence of how AI learns and creates.
So let's break it down. Think of AI like a student, and all the data it's trained on, that's its textbook. The more data it has access to, the more it learns, and the more sophisticated its output becomes.
And when we're talking about creative AI, that data often includes things like books, music, paintings, sculptures, all the stuff that makes up our cultural landscape. The AI analyzes this data, looking for patterns, structures, relationships, and then it uses that knowledge to generate its own creations.
So let's say an AI is trained on a massive data set of classical music. It could potentially compose a new symphony that sounds like it was written by, I don't know, Beethoven himself. Or imagine an AI trained on thousands of novels. It could churn out a story that's indistinguishable from something a human author wrote.
And this is where the debate gets really interesting, right? Because if AI can create things that are essentially indistinguishable from human-created works, what does that mean for the very concept of originality? What happens to the value we place on human creativity?
And what about the livelihoods of artists and creators who are already trying to make a living in a world that's increasingly digital?
These are questions we'll keep wrestling with as we go deeper into this whole issue. But for now, I think it's time to move beyond the hypothetical and look at some real-world examples of how AI is being used in creative fields, for better or for worse.
Exactly. Let's go beyond the theory and see how it's actually playing out, because like any powerful tool, AI has the potential to be both incredibly beneficial and, well, maybe not so much.
And seeing how it's being implemented in the real world, well, that'll help you, the listener, understand what's at stake in this debate and why it matters. So let's dive into the fascinating and sometimes unsettling world of AI in action. Welcome back. We're going to keep digging into this whole AI and creativity thing, exploring how it's actually shaking things up in the real world.
And one area where things are moving at lightning speed is, well, music.
Yeah, I mean, think about it. AI can compose entire pieces of music now. It can create sounds we've never heard before. It can even tailor music to individual tastes. It's pretty mind-blowing.
It really is. So, are musicians going to be out of a job soon? Replaced by robots like in those sci-fi movies?
The age-old question, right? Whenever a new technology comes along that can seemingly do what humans can do, there's always that fear of being replaced.
Yeah, it's understandable.
But, I think it's more nuanced than that. It's not necessarily about AI versus humans. It's more about how they can work together.
So you're saying AI could be more like a tool for musicians, not a competitor.
Exactly. And some musicians are already embracing that. You're using AI as a creative partner, sort of like a virtual bandmate that can help them break through writer's block or explore new genres.
So instead of replacing musicians, AI could actually help them push their creativity further.
That's the idea. And it could be huge for aspiring artists, too. Imagine a young songwriter struggling to come up with a melody. AI tools could help them experiment, give them a starting point to build on.
That's really cool. But what about, originality? If this AI is learning from all this existing music, how do we make sure it's not just churning out copies or worse, stealing from other artists?
That's a big question, and it goes right back to the copyright debate we were talking about earlier.
Right. So how do we make sure AI is being used ethically in music?
It's tough, and there's no easy answer. But, AI isn't just a copycat. It can also be used to break free from those traditional musical patterns and create something truly new.
So it's about finding that balance, isn't it? Not AI versus human creativity, but AI working with human creativity.
I think that's a great way to put it. And that balance, it's going to look different depending on the type of music, the artist's goals. It's a whole new world to explore.
For sure. Okay, so we've talked about music. What about the written word? AI can write stories now, right? Even poems. Is this something authors should be worried about?
Yeah, AI is definitely making waves in literature, too. But like with music, it all comes down to how it's used. It's about finding ways to use this technology to make the writing process richer, not to replace human authors altogether.
Right. So could an author use AI to, I don't know, get past writer's block or play around with different plot ideas?
Absolutely. Let's say you're stuck on a scene or you can't quite figure out a character's motivations. AI tools could help you brainstorm, test out alternative storylines, even experiment with different writing styles.
It sounds like AI could really open up a lot of creative doors for writers.
It could, and it's not limited to just generating text either. AI can also analyze writing that already exists, finding hidden patterns, suggesting ways to improve grammar and style. It's like having a superpowered editor on call.
Wow, that's impressive. But, there's always that nagging question of plagiarism. If this AI is learning from all these books and articles, how do we ensure it's not just ripping off other writers?
It's a valid concern, and it's something researchers and developers are working hard to address.
So what are they doing about it?
Well, some are focusing on building AI systems that can actually detect and avoid plagiarism.
Oh, okay, so kind of like an AI plagiarism checker.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
And others are looking at how we can create legal frameworks to clearly define who owns the copyright to AI-generated content.
So there are still a lot of kinks to work out, but it seems like AI has the potential to really shake up the literary world, both in how books are written and how we read them.
And it's not just music and literature that are being impacted. We're seeing AI changing things in visual art, film, even video game design. The entire creative landscape is evolving in front of our eyes.
It's exciting, isn't it? All these possibilities. But, it's also a little scary. We've got to make sure AI is used ethically and doesn't end up doing more harm than good.
Absolutely. We can't just let this technology run wild without some guardrails in place. We need to have open and honest conversations about the potential risks as well as the rewards.
Right. So what can we do?
Well, thankfully, there are organizations popping up that are specifically focused on developing ethical frameworks for AI, making sure its development is transparent, and protecting creators' rights.
That's good to hear. It sounds like people are realizing we need to address these challenges head on.
They are. And, a lot of creators, they're not just sitting back and waiting to see what happens. They're learning about AI, experimenting with it, and even working directly with developers to shape how it's being used in their creative fields.
So they're choosing to understand it and use it to their advantage, rather than just being afraid of it.
Exactly. And that kind of collaboration between creators and tech people, that's where the real magic can happen. Imagine musicians using AI to create entirely new genres of music, or authors working with AI to craft interactive stories where the reader's choices influence the plot.
That's mind-blowing. The possibilities are pretty much endless.
They are. But to get there, we need a system that balances innovation with protection. We need a system where creators feel confident that their work is valued and AI is being used ethically.
Okay, so we've seen how AI is being used in different creative fields, and it seems like the potential benefits are huge, but the risks are real too. So what's the next step? Where do we go from here?
That's the million-dollar question, right? And it's one we're going to tackle head-on in our final part. We'll dive deep into the legal and ethical challenges and look at what the future might hold for this incredible intersection of technology and art.
All right, welcome back for the final part of our AI and creativity deep dive.
We've talked about how AI learns, how it's being used in different creative fields, and the anxieties it's causing for some creators.
Yeah, and now it's time to tackle, well, the really tricky part, the legal and ethical maze that this technology is creating.
Exactly. On one side, you've got the tech industry pushing for a more relaxed approach to copyright. They're arguing it's vital for AI development, for economic progress, the whole 9 yards.
And on the other side, of course, are the creators who want to protect their work, make sure they're being compensated fairly when their work is used.
And this is where things get, well, pretty messy. One of the biggest legal questions is, who actually owns the copyright to something created by AI?
Yeah, it's not a simple answer, is it?
Not at all. Is it the person who developed the AI? The person who used the AI to create the work? Does the AI somehow own it itself? I mean, these are questions that are making lawyers' heads spin.
Because our current laws, they weren't written with AI in mind.
Right. They were written for a completely different world.
Exactly. And it goes even deeper than just ownership, you know?
Yeah.
If AI can genuinely create something original, should it have the same copyright protections as human creators?
That's a real philosophical conundrum, isn't it? And it brings up some, well, maybe even some scary possibilities.
Yeah, like what if someone uses AI to create deepfakes or to spread misinformation through music or books? That's a bit unsettling.
Absolutely. I mean, we've seen how deepfakes can be used to manipulate videos, and you can imagine how that kind of deception could play out in creative fields, too.
So it seems like we need some pretty clear ethical guidelines, maybe even some new regulations around AI in the creative world. What do you think?
I agree, 100%. We can't just let this technology run wild without thinking about the consequences. But the good news is there are some really smart people working on this. There are organizations popping up that are dedicated to, well, to developing ethical frameworks for AI. making sure its development is transparent and protecting creators' rights.
That's reassuring, at least. It sounds like people are starting to realize the importance of, well, of tackling these challenges head on.
They are. And it's not just like tech experts and ethicists either. A lot of creators themselves are, well, they're not just sitting back and waiting to see what happens. They're getting involved.
Yeah, they're taking matters into their own hands.
Exactly. They're learning about AI, they're experimenting with it. Some of them are even working directly with developers to shape how it's used in their fields.
So instead of being afraid of AI, they're learning how to use it to their advantage.
That's the spirit. And that kind of collaboration between creators and tech people, I think that's where the real magic can happen. Imagine like musicians using AI to create entirely new genres of music.
Or authors working with AI to craft these, like, interactive stories where the reader's choices can actually influence the plot.
Right. The possibilities are pretty mind-blowing.
They are. But to get there, to really unlock that potential, we need a system that's, well, that's fair to everyone. We need a system that balances innovation with protection, a system where creators feel confident that their work is valued and that AI is being used ethically.
Couldn't have said it better myself. It's about finding that sweet spot, that balance.
Right. So I guess the big question is, where do we go from here? What's the takeaway from all of this?
The takeaway is, well, AI is here to stay. It's going to keep changing the creative industries, whether we like it or not. It's not about, fighting against it. It's about figuring out how to make it work for everyone.
I think that's a great point. And I hope this deep dive has given you, the listener, a better understanding of just how complex this issue is.
It's not just about technology. It's about creativity. It's about the future of art. It's about what it means to be human in a world where AI is becoming more and more sophisticated.
Deep stuff.
It is. But we can't shy away from these conversations. We need to keep asking questions, keep exploring, keep creating.
Well said. And on that note, I think it's time to wrap up this deep dive.
Thanks for joining us.
And until next time, keep those creative juices flowing.